you want to manifest the most amazing love that you've ever felt, and you want to manifest your soulmate, embody that emotion. Because once you embody that emotion and you go on dates, you're going to see who's equal to that emotion. You're all of a sudden going to feel like the energy, and you're going to be like, no, that's not the one. Both emotions, negative and positive, serve an amazing, beautiful purpose. You don't need to avoid negative emotions. And just because you feel negative for an hour a day doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden manifest the worst life possible. You know, that's absolutely not true.
Welcome back to the Medicin podcast. My name is Mimi, and I have my glorious human partner with me.
Human partner.
As opposed to my alien
partner. I share partnership with non-human partners as well. So stoked.
You're a glorious human.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Thanks. So stoked to be here. We got Leanna Palmer in the house, the gem goddess, our dear friend. This is a long overdue conversation. There are few who know us as well who have spent weeks, literally most hours of the day with us, trekking across Egypt. So this is going to be fun, a really beautiful conversation, and something that I think many people are in need of hearing, which is, hey, this is a weird world we live in. How do we sift through some of the bullshit? Spirituality and magic and alchemy and these things that have become buzzwords, and they've become like marketing angles, but how do we dive in and break it apart and find real value in a lot of these things? So we're just stoked to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so stoked to be here. I can't wait. Our conversations, like when we're just hanging out, are so exciting and fun. So I can't wait to see what comes out today.
Yeah, I know. I wish sometimes like we're sitting there with you and Mark, and I wish we could just like push record, right. Just sitting at dinner. But yeah, we're super stoked to have you here. And let's see, should we do the tarot draw before we start asking questions? I think so.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Leanna has an amazing, you've been studying tarot for how long?
It's been over 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going on 16, I think, something like that.
Yeah. So we thought this would be perfect for Leanna to bring a special tarot deck, whatever she was called to for this conversation. And we wanted to do something different because of this area of expertise, if you want to call it that, in your daily practice and what you use in your own life. So we wanted to bring that to our listeners and viewers. And so we thought maybe we could start with an intention that could benefit the listener somehow. So a collective intention. I was thinking something like, with the craziness of the world right now, things feel sort of unstable, sort of uneasy sometimes, or very uneasy sometimes. And I was thinking that we could maybe ask Spirit for a message that all of us, that could benefit the collective in some way, give us a reminder that we need to hear right now, but open to what you think as well.
Perfect. I think that would be amazing. So we'll go exactly with that. I do a little prayer before doing tarot every time, basically. So just before pulling a card, I'm just going to do a little prayer. So, dear guides and angels of 100% pure white light, please come through at this time to help us give beautiful and accurate answers for the entire collective. Thank you. Amen. So just quick little...
Yeah, I love that.
To cleanse the cards. Ooh. Okay, we have one fallout card already. I'm probably just going to pull one more on that.
So if one jumps out, that means it's supposed to come out?
Yeah. I like waiting for fallout cards. Some readers like to actually choose the cards, but I find it so powerful if ones actually jump out, because it just feels almost like the universe was like, let's push that energy out there. So the two cards that came out is Justice and the Three of Cups.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what's wild?
Tell me.
We did a draw with our good friend Adrian last week. Mm-hmm. Three of Cups came up.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the energy of the podcast studio. It's
Seriously.
Like, hey, we're three friends cheersing our cups.
You know what? That's a perfect reflection.
Uniting in love. We're here celebrating together. That's so wild.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, totally. And Justice comes out when it wants to talk about truth. It can also talk about the government or things that are going on in the world, or laws and order. It also talks about balance. So for a kind of more collective idea, I would apply this to how do you want to balance your life? I'm also getting a message, since it is next to the Three of Cups, about balancing your seriousness and focusing on, news and all the serious stuff in the world, but balancing that with, let's look at the fun that's also happening in the world right now. Let's look at the good things. Also, how can we create more good things? Because whatever we focus on the most is what we end up consciously creating. Just like our train of thought. If our train of thought is constantly going towards news, the bad things that are happening, the news tends to kind of accentuate more of the bad stuff. And if we're constantly focused on the negative, or even just the negative stuff that's personally going on through our own mind, our train of thought is going to continue to expand upon that. And we're going to continue to go and create that reality rather than maybe creating a reality that could benefit us. And if the collective, if we, even as individuals, begin to more focus our train of thought towards things that are celebratory, things that are fun, things that are amazing, we're going to continue that train of thought and expanding that reality. And we're also going to inspire other people to do that as well. Because just as everything branches out, a train of thought branches out, your energy will branch out as well. And you're going to impact other people in your life through what you talk about the most, what you do the most. So I feel like life is about that balance. What are we focusing on right now? And how can we create more balance in our life? It's important to know about the negative things. Justice talks about the fact that we need to have both in balance. So it's important to be aware of what's going on in the world. How can we maybe fix the negative? But then at the same time, we do need to very much focus on balancing that with what is amazing and what do I want to create? Yeah.
That's so good. And what's coming up for me is we get so accustomed to being frustrated by things of this world, sitting from our armchair, like sitting in the seat watching the news or scrolling through social media and like shaking our fist out of frustration at the powers that be that are keeping us from living our dreams or whatever narrative is being pushed down our throat. Yet we're sitting there not doing anything. And like, what if we leaned into community? This idea of friends getting together and cheersing and creating a collective environment that is of abundance and light and fun and joy. Get off your ass. If you're frustrated by something, how about you start with yourself, you start with your family, you start with your community, and you invest in those relationships to make the world a better place. It's a ripple effect. But if we're just going to consistently sit in our armchairs and be frustrated by what is happening to us without taking any action, it's only going to get worse.
And not only frustrated, but also anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
I would say with the ongoings of the world, yes, it is frustrating. But for me personally, I've noticed in my own life really recently when I focus, if I'm, getting my updates through Twitter more and more often, my anxiety raises like palpably. And I just had a little like come to Jesus conversation with myself and Chase yesterday. It was like, I'm feeling the anxiety of the world and the uncertainty of all these different potential dystopic futures and possibilities that could pan out. Of course, none of us know exactly what's going to pan out, but I'm noticing more so like when I focus on the news, Twitter, social media in general, my anxiety is, I think that's the peak of my anxiety. Nothing else really in life gives me anxiety but that. And so I just like decided yesterday, I'm like, I need to stay off of this as much as possible, specifically Twitter, because that's my news source right now. And so I love what you're saying. It's just it's a reminder for me personally right now, for sure. And then also, I hope a reminder, to the listener, to the viewer, just thinking about what it is you want to create and knowing that we have only so much time and energy to put towards what we want to create in our life. And if we're putting that energy towards the negativity, the headlines, the scary stuff in the world, doesn't mean you need to put your head in the sand, but just be mindful of like, where are you putting your energy, your dreams or your fears?
Exactly. And also negative emotion is always an action signal. It's actually a signal for us to expand. It's saying that whatever we're doing right now, whatever we're focused on, if we're depressed, it's because we need to expand. We haven't expanded ourselves. So that's when you kind of, it's almost like a gift. Your emotions are always a gift. So if you're feeling anxious or depressed. Anxiousness is energy that's not being utilized. And so whenever you're feeling anxious about something, it's a buildup of energy. So if you read something that you're like, that's making me really anxious and nervous, it is a buildup of energy that wants you to take action to do something with that. So it could be taking action to rectify whatever it is that you're reading, or to think, what can I do in my life to avoid this or create less of that in the world? And if you're feeling really sad about something, or sadness can come from many different places. Let's say you're feeling really alone. It's an action. Okay, let's go find love. You're feeling alone because you have so much love to give. You have so much love to share. So how can we go and take action on that? If you're feeling frustrated, that's something that I've noticed in my life lately, is like a lot of frustration coming up, especially when it comes to like the work that I do. And I noticed for myself that the reason why frustration was coming up is because I'm not really getting the results that I really want, but it's coming because I'm not also pushing myself to expand into the things that I want to expand into. So it's me realizing that I could do more, but I'm holding myself back. So why am I holding myself back from fully making the vision that I really want? So when you actually do shadow work and you kind of look into, why am I feeling negative right now? Where is this negativity coming from? And how can I take action on fixing it? You'll notice that negative emotion is always, always, always an action signal.
Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it, kind of reframe it, I suppose, because we're kind of taught to avoid negative emotion rather than like sit with it, maybe even lean into it for a minute and like kind of peel back the layers on it, and then kind of flip it and look at like, what action is my physiology, my soul guiding me towards, and using it as like a signal rather than sort of like feedback that you're not doing something right. It's like, I really like that reframe.
Yeah,
that's great.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I love this already. I think we should backpedal a tiny bit, and I know we're going to branch off of what we were talking about, and we're going to expand on that for sure, but I don't want to get too far in without asking you the first question that we ask every guest, which is, what do you love in your life? What aspect of your life do you love so much that you wish you could gift it to every human?
I love what I've kind of realized in my life is life is about love and creating a beautiful experience. And when you can share that experience with others and show others to create a beautiful experience as well, I think that's such a beautiful gift, because when you see others living their best life and then you get to go and do that as well, that's such a beautiful feeling. And so I would say the biggest thing that I love about my life is like the realization that magic is everywhere. Love is everywhere. You can find love within anything, which brings me on a whole other topic. My Gemini brain is like,
yes,
go
for
whole
it,
other
girl.
topic. So we all are kind of familiar with the 5 love languages, right? And we all have certain love languages that we receive love in more than others. If you can actually work on that, and you can actually look at what are your lowest love languages, where do you not tend to recognize love in, if you can work on that to begin to recognize love within those places as well, you're going to create a life where you see love within everything. And then also, when you go to find like a partner in life, and let's say that you've worked on yourself and you can see love within everything, you're going to start to notice love when it's actually there. And you're not going to be as inclined to go into toxic relationships, because you're going to be able to see like who's also maybe on that wavelength, who understands that depth of love as well. And then you can also share that, with your partner, because no relationship is perfect, but you could also share that with your partner, have them work on their love languages to feel love within everything as well. And you're going to create a much more beautiful relationship where you can feel love through any action and see love through any action. It's not even just related to romance either, because you can begin to feel love through so many different spectrums with your family, with your friends, in all areas, rather than just a limited kind of like, oh, this was how I was raised, so I see love languages only in these like small, minute parts. But when we can recognize that and expand
So
that,
what were your lower love languages that you've kind of started to look at differently?
One of them was receiving gifts. I wouldn't necessarily see that as like tons of love. Like I would see that as like a beautiful thing, but it just wasn't that high. And so I began to realize like, oh, when somebody gives you a gift, that means they thought of you when they were out, when they were through their day. And that's one of the most beautiful ways of receiving love. Somebody's actually giving you like a representation of it. I would say Okay, remind me what all of them are. It's quality time, because that's my highest.
Physical touch.
Physical touch was another actually low one for me. I used to associate physical touch with somebody wanting something from me.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody would do a lot of touch, I'm like, either they just want, physical intimacy, and that's not always associated with love, or I would think that, I don't know, they're just maybe invading personal space. I used to think that. And when I started working on that, and then you see that touch can actually be such a deep form of love, especially again when you recognize it in a healthy relationship versus a not so healthy relationship, it can get so deep that way. And you get to experience a whole new depth of love rather than associating it to a bad thing.
Yeah, there's a reason why, when they have done experiments a long time ago on babies, the failure to thrive. Have you heard of this before? Where
No.
they had newborn babies basically, and one group was only receiving enough touch to change their diapers, feed them, but that was it. And then there was another group that got all the love and hugs and kisses and squeezes and everything that you would give a baby normally, right? This was a long time ago again. And what they saw with the group that only received touch for survival was they essentially had failure to thrive. Like they developed disease and they did not thrive in life. Some of them died. So I always think back on that, how essential just skin to skin touch is and how it's wired into our DNA. But I totally hear you on the touch, thinking that there could be an ulterior motive to it. But realizing that could be our own shell that we're putting up, not necessarily what's inherent or natural from a DNA perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual fuckboys out there who are trying to groom you into physical touch being your primary love language. So look out, everybody. But no, I totally get it. And there's, for me, who's, especially in my past, was always scorekeeping and always wanted to have an even playing field because I didn't want anybody to have anything on me. And so physical touch would be stop, because I'm going to have to reciprocate to make the playing field even. So even when we were married, and physical touch would happen after, I was traveling all week long and I was super tired and it was Friday night and honestly I just wanted to get drunk. Physical touch would be I have to now engage and even the playing field, and I'm too tired to do this. and similarly, it almost felt prickly at times. And I'm an introvert by heart, and a lot of times want my own space, and a hug or a touch can be invading my little bubble. And so it's almost feels prickly in the right
not
the
anymore
wrong
though,
circumstance.
right?
No, not anymore. So what did we hit? Physical touch.
Quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and then gift giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably more, but those are kind of generalized.
Well, and I think in relationships specifically, something that was a big aha for me as we went through our journey was, wow, I have a tendency to give love in the way that I receive it. And so my default mode, if I'm not conscious about what my partner, how they receive love best or ideally, I will just default to quality time because that's my highest love language. And they're yo, where are those gifts? Where are those gifts at? Or whatever it is. It's physical touch actually for Megan. So, and just being able to have that wow, I actually give and receive the same. And so if I'm actually trying to meet my significant other where they would like to be met from a love language standpoint, I'm going to want to shift out of that a little bit.
Exactly. And one point that I really want to make clear as well, just so anyone listening to this doesn't apply it in the wrong way. For example, just using the example that we just used, for physical touch, for example, if let's say that you are feeling oh, physical touch, I totally feel like somebody just wants something from me or they just want sex or whatever. You may actually just be in the wrong relationship, and you may actually just be with somebody who, because we're very sensitive to that. So first of all, you may just be with somebody who that's just the case. Or it may be an underlying association that you have from childhood or something, something that we've created for ourselves.
Yeah. That's a good clarification.
Well, and then if we actually want to talk about the ideal definition of love, it would be unconditional love. And so if you are with someone who is giving and speaking to you in a love language because they have an expectation of getting something in return. That is not unconditional love. That is a condition that they are engaging in the love interaction with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm actually so glad that you said that too, because one of my ways of like looking at the 5 love languages are those are your current conditions. And if you want to be able to love unconditionally and also to receive love unconditionally, you need to work on those so that you can recognize love in all of those areas and also work on yourself to give love in all of those areas.
I'm getting an image of like, you know, the love languages that are high on our list. Like for me, physical touch is number 1, followed by words of affirmation. Those are innate. Those are so easy. I breathe them, you know, it's so easy for me to engage in those, and engaging in the other ones or learning to understand when he's giving me an aspect or a nutrient that falls under one of the other 5 love languages. It's like developing a muscle, you know, it's like going to the gym and developing a muscle. You don't want to just always engage in the activities or the exercises that come easy to you, right? Like, let's lean into the ones that come maybe a little bit, that there's a little more stickiness. There's a little bit more resistance. Like that's the areas that, you know, have the potential for us to grow.
That's so true. And just like going to the gym, you don't just want to work out the muscles because you're like, oh my God, lifting weights like this is super easy. But then when you do this one, you're like, that one's like really hard. Yeah. So of course we don't want to just build the muscles that are good because then our body is just going to, you know, be lopsided or something.
Totally.
So of course, like if you want your spiritual body to not be lopsided, it's about looking at, okay, what are my weaknesses and how can I work on those and actually dive into them more to make them strengths? Because we're all capable of like making any aspect of ourselves into a strength.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Super good. Well, I think, you know, probably a lot of our followers know you because they watched our stories when we were in Egypt and did a thorough stalking of your various platforms. But for the sake of educating everybody watching and or listening about what you do in the world currently, can you, you know, maybe just sum up what you are currently doing in the world?
Okay. What I'm currently doing, I do tarot readings online on YouTube. Like I don't do personal ones, but I do them on YouTube just for a lack of time. I don't do the personal ones anymore, but I also do astrology on YouTube. I make content to help inspire, uplift, and help you reach your highest potential, highest vibration. I make videos on manifestation, how to utilize the law of attraction, basically, so that you can create your dream reality. My whole purpose in life is to show you how to create your dream reality. That's my purpose, to awaken the parts of you that may be not awakened yet.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. And so for anyone listening who we need to get caught up, I don't think we said it yet. We went to Egypt with Mark and Leanna. It was such an adventure, such an amazing just experience to do with you guys. And I will say, like, we have a lot of friends, but there's no bond quite like traveling overseas together and experiencing everything we did. And it was so fun to get to learn more about you and Mark together. But in that, you know, we were with each other every day for 3 weeks basically. And I'm piggybacking on something you were saying. You could look at your channel, you'll look at your content like, oh, she's got it all figured out. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's well-spoken, but maybe not know for sure if you're living and walking the walk, the things that you speak. And I just want to say right off the bat, like after spending every day for 3 weeks with you, like I can honestly say this girl walks the walk. And you're just a joy to be around. Like, we feel lighter when we hang out with you and Mark. And that is a rare thing in this world, in friendships, just in general. So I just want to put that out there that like anything that you talk about today, like this girl does the work, and we saw that firsthand. So just wanted to give you major props there first off.
Wow. Thank you. I'm like so beyond flattered right now. I also love hanging out with you guys, and spending those 3 weeks together was like the most phenomenal, highest points of my life. So that was incredible.
Yeah,
we had some big bonding experiences there too.
Some very real highs and some very real lows, but we got through it. We made it. Okay, so now that we know a little bit about what you do in the world and how you help people, your mission, I would, selfishly, we've heard a little bit about your backstory, and I just find it fascinating because it's so different than how Chase and I grew up in the evangelical Christian world. I just feel like we have wildly different childhoods, and specifically, you've shared with us before that your mom actually exposed you to a lot of how you're helping the world now, the tarot and the astrology. So I was hoping that you could go a little bit into your backstory a little bit and give us a sense of maybe childhood, young adult years, what that looked like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom was always into spirituality ever since she was a teenager. She was always diving into books on spiritual subjects. And she's also kind of, sensitive to, hearing spirits or whatever. That sounds super esoteric, I know. But and when I was born, I was really sensitive to energy as well. And I started doing Reiki when I was 5 and I didn't know what it was. But basically anytime my mom had tension in her back, because she usually had really sore shoulders or whatever, I would always feel, and I could almost see that there was this more blackish energy that was stopping the flow of energy in her body.
Wow.
And so when I was a kid, I didn't even know what this was. I didn't even know Reiki was a thing. Didn't even know the name of it. But when I was 5, I was like, oh, let me just pull that energy out of your back, And so I would do that. And then she'd be like, wow, I literally actually feel better. And as I got older, I ended up actually going for Reiki, and learning it from an actual teacher as I kind of discovered more about what it was. And my mom was super into tarot and astrology, and she would always have this tarot deck that she was, playing with and pulling cards and reading books on astrology. And I just got super into it. I was very interested in, as a kid, we're all kind of usually interested in magical things and whatnot. And so this was a way to bring magic into this world. And so I was super into it. And eventually my mom was like, oh, I want to take some classes on tarot and astrology. Do you want to join me? And I was like, of course I do. Absolutely. And so we would go to tarot and astrology classes together. And the tarot reader that I used to go to, we actually used to get readings from her as well. And I actually still usually see her about once a year. And she is so phenomenally accurate. She has predicted some of the most wildest things in my life. And this is what made me realize that there's really something to the tarot. It's not just this mystical kind of fun, magical thing. There's really something to it. Just because this tarot reader would predict things way far in my future that at the time I'd be like, there's no way. And there would be things that she would predict that were way out of my control that I couldn't just manifest for myself. And so she'd predict certain relationships, how those relationships would turn out, what would happen, where I'd end up. She even told me that I'd eventually move to another country. And at the time I was like, this just sounds so wild, because I was so young when I got these readings. I was probably 15 or 16 when I got these readings from her predicting these things. And throughout my life, these things have happened. She's been so accurate. And so learning from her was incredible. She's such an incredible teacher. And I feel so blessed to have gotten to learn from her. And basically through my whole childhood, me and my mom would wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, do tarot together until 8 a.m.
Wow.
And then go to classes together, come home, start working on the tarot again, because we were just so fascinated by it. And then, that expanded into doing numerology, mediumship, and just going into all different directions with spirituality. So that's basically my background and how I grew up. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
And
we would have been blasted and out of our community as heretics. That's so amazing. Something you said around the lines of as kids, we all love magic. We love this idea of magic. And we were just talking about this and thinking about this. We're watching Harry Potter, we throw it on when we're trying to fall asleep every now and then. And I just love...
Or anytime we just need an uplift.
Yeah.
We're we watch something heavy, let's throw on Harry.
But it's the stories on the backdrop of magic. And you could argue the same with Lord of the Rings and some of these other myths that have just always... And fairy tales. It's just so deeply resonating for kids. Why do you think that is? Why are we so interested in seemingly mythical or fictional magic?
I think it's because we know that there's some sort of underlying truth of it. So, for example, we cannot conceptualize of anything that we haven't seen or experienced before. For example, if I tell you to think about a color you've never seen, you can't do it. And so the fact that we can even conceptualize of the concept of magic means that there's something that is unexplainable in the human experience. And so I feel like as kids, we're also really drawn to this because our imagination is more open and we're less kind of restricted with different belief systems that we've created in adulthood, such as like, oh, magic isn't real. You know, I feel like as adults, we tend to kind of lose that because we've experienced some of the negatives in life that have maybe destroyed some of the magic that we used to believe. But just because you've experienced negative things doesn't make that belief system real, which I'd love to talk about belief systems eventually. But yeah, so that's basically why I think we have this fascination. And I think kids are also more like they're closer to the spiritual realm because they've just been born, they've just been incarnated, so they may still feel more and be more open to those energies.
I also think like when you're a kid, you haven't gone through your indoctrination, programming. Certainly you're in the process of it. You're a sponge. You're picking up everything from like, okay, this is useful. That's what that is. This is what that is. Okay, I'm not supposed to do that. People look at me weird when I do this. So I think it's innate in us to be drawn to things that are magical. I mean, even the concept of Santa Claus, like little kids love the concept because it is magical. And I think we get far enough along in our programming where we start to be very aware of how other people see us. And so I think like engaging in fantasy or magic or speaking in a certain way about certain things, we pick up on, oh, she thinks I'm weird for that. Oh, I better not do that. And we suddenly become way more concerned and fixated on how other people are seeing us rather than just in our own world and in our own imagination, like living in the magic. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think we at an early age, and probably most of us don't even remember it, feel shame and guilt around magical thinking, and we get more feedback thinking left to right, top to bottom. And so when we get feedback from the external world that we're doing something within the box, we continue to double down on that and go down that path. And it's funny, the people who I've met who are the most magical in their adult lives typically weren't thrust into that very, very rational way of thinking and behaving at an early age. They've usually have a traditional upbringing or had exposure to, solving questions and problems through outside of the box thinking and totally wild ways of coming up to conclusions and answers and ways to live your life. So I think that's totally true. I mean, I would distill it back to childhood and most of the environments that we're brought into.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And the meanings that we give to certain experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have like the coolest way to kind of conceptualize belief systems is like a table. And then let's say that your belief is the tabletop, but then every experience that you have is the legs supporting that table. It's going to be really hard for you to change a certain belief if you have a lot of legs supporting that table, a lot of experiences backing that certain idea. And just because we have an idea with a lot of support under it doesn't actually make it true. So, for example, in childhood, let's take the idea of like a little boy. And let's say that he went to go tell a girl that he had a crush on her and she rejected him. And let's say he put the meaning on that, like, I'm unlovable. And that experience proves to him that perception that I'm unlovable. And let's say that he goes and tries out again, because maybe he gets another crush when he's a little bit older, and then he tries it again, maybe gets rejected again. That's another experience backing that idea. But the thing is that that belief that he has is untrue. Everyone is lovable in their own way, right? But we kind of create these certain belief systems because of experiences and the meaning that we attach to that experience. Yeah. So if you want to break down old belief systems, if you want to create new ones that actually support the reality that you want, it's about defining, okay, what is the current belief systems that I have that might be holding me back? What do I believe about the world? Do I believe that money's hard to get? Do I believe that relationships are really difficult? I'm always going to attract, someone that's not ideal. What belief systems do you have? If you can define that, which there's a process for doing that. But if you can define that, but then also define what would I rather believe, what belief system would support me, even if you don't believe it right now, because you might be thinking to yourself like, but I do believe I'm unlovable. And you're trying to create this new belief system. So define the belief system that you want and then start creating experiences to back that. And meanwhile, start breaking down the old ones and start to realize that just because you had an experience there doesn't make that belief system real. Just because money's been hard to get doesn't mean that it is hard to get.
And oftentimes too, there's that cognitive dissonance, that bias that we have, where we see the world through a certain filter based on the belief that we already have. So like our brain is looking for the evidence that supports the belief that we already have, rather than finding the evidence that may be just as real and just as, palpable in our field or in our life, but our eyes are like attuned to the evidence that is familiar, let's say. And so like the familiar discomfort actually starts to feel like comfort as it relates to our like belief, because we're looking for the evidence that supports that, when we could just like look in a different direction and find evidence to support a different belief.
Absolutely. And you can find evidence to support almost any belief system. So what belief systems do you want? What are belief systems that are going to serve you versus ones that are not going to serve you? And let's begin to break down those. But sometimes we're really unconscious of what we believe, because we almost think that it is reality because we've experienced it so many times. And that's like the beauty of shadow work. It's looking at the unconscious, which is what shadow work basically stands for, is like looking at the shadow, looking at the unconscious, whereas light is like the conscious mind.
Yeah. So let's keep pulling on this thread, because I like this a lot. I mean, just sharing openly, belief systems that have come into my life. One, we got divorced, and I still do this, and I have to watch myself because I tend to just consider marriage bullshit, because my evidence for marriage is that it was the most painful thing that ever happened to me. And so I'm consistently like, I have to like unattach myself from this idea that marriage is, or I'll like, be kind of a cynical asshole when people get married, especially when they get married really young, and I'll be like, oh Jesus, okay, here we go. But that's because it's validated by my experience being just incredibly heartbreaking and cold, the whole process, when we're super open about it, but it was not enjoyable. The other one is Christianity, and this is me witnessing it. So I'm witnessing Christianity for many, where they experience mentorship, they experience the Hierophant archetype, and they see community. They have a friend group. They also find a connection to the divine, a meditation practice that they call prayer. Rituals like communion that connects them to something metaphysical. They have ecstatic dance and sound healing through worship. And so they kind of package all of these together and go, this is God. This is my connection to God. It's the only way. And I, as myself, not being able to hit on some of those same chords of resonance, was like, whoa, no, this is just for you, right? Like, this is just your version of that. And so like, how you're articulating belief systems is so spot on. I love the analogy of the table and the legs, because like these legs and things like religions specifically can really be supportive, wildly supportive. But now I want to get into like, how do we, one, you talked about kind of shadow work. Maybe we can like unpack that a little bit around what is that exactly. But then how do we, once we're aware of belief systems, evaluate which are the ones we would like to keep, which are the ones we would like to potentially, break apart from and or repackage into something that's more beneficial for our life?
Yeah, so one of the first ways to kind of begin to uncover your belief systems is to ask yourself, what are the emotions you feel on a daily basis? And write down every single emotion that you normally feel. Then circle all the ones that are negative. And then ask yourself, what causes me to feel those? Like if it's frustration, is it frustration because maybe there's something that we really want to do, but we believe we can't, or maybe we believe that there's something that's stopping us or something like that. So there's also examples online. So if you're really lost, you could also just Google examples of like really common limiting beliefs. There's tons of examples, and you just kind of go through them and see like, oh, I actually really resonate with that one. So those are some of the ways that you can get to know what are your limiting beliefs. You can also get to know your fears that way. So is there a fear that's coming up in your life when you're feeling a negative emotion? And a fear is similar to a limiting belief as well. We may fear rejection. We may fear failure. Those are really common fears that we have. So we may have a belief system attached to those fears as well. We may believe like it's hard to do whatever you want to do, therefore you fear failure. You fear failure around that. So once you are aware of what your current belief systems are, then you can begin to ask yourself, what is the opposite of that? How could I change this belief to something that serves me? So instead of believing, I believe that I won't attain my dreams because it's really difficult. If you have that belief, write something down that's the opposite. So write down, my dreams are super easy to attain because I have these dreams, I have this visualization, therefore I can do it. Anything I visualize, I can do. And even though you may not believe that at first, and it may feel like really false when you're writing that down, you may feel like that's a fairy tale way of thinking that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense right now because it's not a strong neural pathway in your brain. So when we believe old thoughts, and we have a lot of support on that, you can almost see it as like driving down a road so many times. The tire prints are going to become so imprinted. That old way of thinking is so imprinted in your mind right now. The less you use it, the more that, nature's going to overtake that road again. And it's going to break down. It won't. The less you fire a certain neuron, the less that you're going to wire it into your mind. But the more that you fire a new neuron, which is a new way of thinking, the more you're going to build that new road, that new neural pathway. So when you want to create a new belief, repeat that belief to yourself and also begin to embody it. So the 3 different ways to change your identity are repetition, awareness, and embodiment. Awareness actually comes first. So awareness of what's the belief that you want to have. Then you need to repeat it. Repeat that belief to yourself. Anytime that you catch yourself thinking in the negative way, if you notice fear coming up, if you notice the limitation coming up, repeat to yourself your new way of thinking. It's going to feel unnatural at first. You're going to question it. But the more that you repeat it to yourself, the more that you think it, the more you're going to wire in that new way of thinking. So awareness, repetition, and then embodiment. Embodiment, I like to do embodiment through meditation personally, but you can do embodiment in many different ways. And what embodiment means is think about how would you feel with this new way of thinking? Because if you can get a really powerful emotion behind a new way of thinking, you're going to create that new neuron much quicker if you match it with a powerful emotion. So think about, how would I feel if success became so easy to me? If my dreams became so easy? How would that feel? Who would I be? Start to embody that feeling, embody that emotion. And if you can do it with more power, if you can sit with that emotion for a long period of time, which is why I like to do that in meditation, you're going to create that new neural pathway in your brain much faster and much stronger. And then you can also look for evidence in your external world to back that new belief as well. So you can Google stories of people who maybe came from, really unsuccessful backgrounds and created the most success for themselves. The more that you can create that experience. Yeah, you can just Google examples of people that have done it anyway, because there's no way your belief system is cold, hard, solid truth if other people have proved it wrong.
Yeah,
right?
That's so true.
That's a really good reminder for me too, to put my head more in some of those stories of rags to riches stories, if you will. I'll give an example. This is perfectly articulated, and I'll give an example from my life. And I wasn't really even aware of this happening. This is just kind of like by happenstance. And your 3 steps of awareness, repetition, embodiment, so spot on as you're saying these back. I'm reminded when we got divorced. 2 years after we'd been divorced, I was just still harboring like bitterness and negativity in my life, and was so ready to be done with it and just get rid of this feeling. I would think about Megan or our life or our relationship, and it would just bring such bitterness into the way that I thought, the way that I acted, the relationships that I was having. And I was like, I am so ready to get over this. And I was reading Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And this awareness was like step 1, was like, wow, this is not serving me any longer. And it's actually, continuing to deteriorate my lifestyle. And so I started this practice of like, every time I would think of Megan or think of our life or think of my past, I would just say the word change, which was based on his recommendation in the book. And as I would say that, I would go kind of the next step, which would be into this embodiment phase of when I would spend time in meditation, I would think about her and wish for the best. I would hope that she was successful, that she was happy, that she was healthy. Because honestly, when I would think about her previously, I had hoped that she wasn't doing well. Like out of the bitterness of my soul, I was like, I hope she's kind of like struggling, And so I was like, fuck, I have to get past this point. So past this point that when I think of her, I get like lit up with excitement for the things that she's creating in the world. I'd loosely known that she'd she'd become an entrepreneur and things like that, which was helpful. And it was clunky. It was like not easy. It was like fucking nails on the chalkboard for a little while, but slowly and surely, like it really did start to change in my body. So much so that after months of doing this, we organically reconnect, and I'm lit up by the reconnection as friends. Forgetting the fact that she was, my ex-wife, and rather just like, wow, I'm so groomed in this way of thinking about you that as we've reconnected, and I think it blew you away in a lot of ways, because it was like, yeah, let's go. Let me hear about your life. I'm so excited for you. I know you're crushing it. And it was through these practices. Of course, I was not aware of these steps, but as you're saying this is the exact kind of route that I took for getting over the biggest challenge of, my very cushioned life.
And piggybacking on that, I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here now had you not done that.
No. Mm-mm.
Had you decided that it was going to be too hard or annoying, or that you just didn't want to, or that you liked living in the negativity of the bitterness, because that can be almost like its own weird like dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Pleasure hit in like the negative sense, kind of living in those negative thought loops. Had you not done that, like we wouldn't be sitting here today, because we wouldn't have met up. We wouldn't have reconnected. We wouldn't have started a new friendship. So I just wanted to kind of amplify the ripple effect that making a small decision like that, it's a big decision, but it's a small act, but with profound ripple effects. Like you have no idea what doing what you just described, Leanna, could do for the rest of your entire life. It can totally transform.
Absolutely. Shifting like one belief system can completely change radically your entire life, because our belief systems actually like block our mind from expanding and creating a reality beyond those limitations. You will never be able to create a reality beyond your limitations, because the belief systems that you have are putting your mind into a box. Therefore, your mind is never going to think outside of the box unless you break down the belief. If you break down that wall, your mind is going to expand there. And so the reason why belief systems work, especially when it comes to like success or creating money or creating a great relationship, the reason why it works is because if you have a limiting belief that says money is really hard, your mind will never explore a thought that makes money easy. It will never explore a thought like that. And even if you think that you're exploring a thought like that, your limitation will never let you create an idea that you actually believe that you could do. And you'll notice that you either fail at it, or that even if you begin trying one of those ideas, you're going to get down on yourself, because that limitation is going to keep knocking on your mind saying, you can't do it. You can't do it. Why are you even spending energy over there? And you're going to get down on yourself and discontinue that path. So once you break down these belief systems, your mind will be able to go into a new realm, a whole new like place that you've never even explored before. And that's where you're going to get ideas out of the blue. That is going to be where you get these inspirations where you're like, oh my gosh, I just thought of an idea that I would have never thought of before. Yeah. And you're also going to have the ability to push through on that idea, because you no longer have that wall that keeps blocking you from exploring the idea further and going to actually make it happen.
Do you have an example of that in your life where you were able to identify a belief system that wasn't serving you and you were able to actually transform it?
Yeah, so many examples. One of them was, so actually going back to my childhood with spirituality. I grew up super spiritual, but I grew up more of a closet spiritualist because I was sort of raised with the notion that spirituality is not accepted and people are going to think you're really crazy and weird for believing in that. So don't ever talk about it. Don't ever do it with other people. Like the only person that I felt safe doing it with was my mom or some of my really close friends, where I'd be like, hey, so I kind of like was learning this new thing. And they'd be like, oh, okay, they're kind of interested in it. Maybe I'll explore it with them. So there's a very few people that actually knew that I was spiritual. And I really wanted to find my purpose in life. And I was exploring, like, what could that be? What could that be? And my mind didn't even think that I could do tarot or astrology, because I just had this belief system, like you can't talk about that stuff. So therefore it was not even an option I explored for myself to be my career. And there was a long time I was like trying to find my myself in my career, which actually ended up being a divine thing because I ended up going to audio engineering school because I thought like, oh, being a producer would be really fun, or doing something within music. And that actually had a major benefit for me. So I'm glad that I took that route. And so there's actually purpose behind all of our limitations. And maybe we can come back to that topic, but there's always purpose behind our limitations. Anyway, eventually, in my kind of early 20s, I was like, I really want to do this, but I need to kind of break through this limiting belief that spirituality is weird, because I was like, I want to live my purpose. And I knew some people in my life at the time who were, living their spiritual lives and making a career out of it. And I just thought it was the most inspiring, most beautiful thing ever. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I can't do that. And then I'm like, why can't I do that? And it was this moment where I was like, wow, I have this belief system that I can't do it because I believe that I'm going to be mocked for it or judged. And it was a huge feeling of like fear of judgment. And eventually I was just like, you know what? I'm going to like liberate myself. I'm going to break free from that. And I'm just going to make a video. I'm going to take action on it to prove to myself that I can do it. So I still actually had this belief system when I started my spiritual YouTube channel, but I realized I had this belief, which made me realize that I need to start the YouTube channel. And so I did. And it took me some time to like break out of that fear, because as I was making those videos, I was still kind of like really awkward and stuff. But the more that I did it, the more that I just put myself there, I noticed that people would say supportive things. There'd be a couple negative people here and there, but there would also be some supportive people. And I was like, I'm just going to start speaking to those, to those people that are supportive of this. And just breaking out of that. That's why I do what I do today. That's why like I've made spirituality my career. So that was one of the biggest things that I broke out of.
Yeah. And
super powerful.
That's huge. And it's obviously had a huge ripple in your own life, but then it also ripples out into other people's lives. Like thinking about how many people you've impacted or helped. Like we will never fully understand the impact, the positive impact. We can't know every way that it's positively impacting people. And even like trying to wrap your mind around that is like, it's boggling. But like that one decision had such a profound ripple effect throughout the collective. And that's honestly what I believe we need more of, and what so many of the issues and problems when we look at the individual, like in the world, so many of the issues and problems come down to is that person really following their soul's desire, their soul's dream? We don't need more inventions, more tech, more entrepreneurs, more business owners. We need more people who are living out their dreams, because that is what's going to give the individual purpose and drive and fulfillment in their life. And when we do that on an individual level, we are healthier, we're more positive, we have more direction in life, and then that ripples out into the collective. Like it's so clear to me, especially as we've been learning with like Paul Chek. He talks about this all the time. Any client that he works with, whether they're Kobe Bryant or a billionaire or, whoever, he starts with, what is your one dream? Because if you don't have a dream, if you don't have a labor of love, you're going to be sabotaging yourself. You're going to have this void, it's going to feel like. So I think so much of our issues in the world come back to really asking ourselves, like, am I living out my dream? Am I living out my purpose? Because it's like fuel to the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I feel like so many of us don't find our purpose, possibly because we have a belief system that says, don't even think about that because it's not possible. Just like for my example. So there may be a belief system that's holding you back from realizing what your purpose may be, because that's just maybe an off limits area for you. Yeah. But if you work through those limiting beliefs, you may find your purpose. And another way to also find your purpose is to look at, and this is going to sound so backwards, but to look at your life where you've had the most pain and how you've healed that. When you can look at how you've healed some of your most traumatic or painful experiences in your life, that's actually where a lot of people's purpose comes from. For example, musicians found that music has healed their pain. Therefore, they became so fascinated with music that they became a professional musician. Or, for example, for me, I've worked through a lot of my pain through spiritual concepts and learning a lot about personal development, law of attraction, doing tarot and astrology. And I found my purpose within that. That's why that I became so passionate behind it. Because passion is an interesting emotion that you can be passionately in love with something, or you can passionately hate something.
Yeah.
But if you want to cultivate more passion in your life, look at how you've healed, look at how you've transformed.
Yeah.
And if you still need to create a purpose, maybe you're going through a hard time right now, think about how can I heal that? And then you may find more of your purpose through that. Because we create our purpose. It's not just something that's arbitrary that we're like, oh, we need to go out and like find it in the world. We create our purpose. So how are you healing? And you've created like an amazing podcast. You found healing a lot through mushrooms, and look at what you're doing, like podcast mushrooms.
And there's still like, just being open, like belief systems still, I think have even like kept me chained to certain versions of myself over the last 3 years as we've launched this show and we talk about these various topics. We kind of recently publicly came out of the closet with psychedelics, which is like something we always danced around. Even being on video, we just started YouTube. My reservations were that I still have a foot in the real world, right?
The business world.
The business world. I'm talking to lawyers and bankers and investors. And I know the first thing they do is they look up my social and platforms, and when they see, psychedelics mentioned, I'm like, oh Jesus, now I got to sort of like integrate this version of myself with the suits, right? The suits of the world. And I think it's kept me like chained to this version of myself in a lot of ways, and I've had such a hard time to reconcile both of these versions of myself. But yeah, now I'm just deeply curious, and it's a new idea and a new concept, really. But just being like, what is that guy? Like, if half my body is this like businessman and the other half is a psychonaut who, wants to push the edges of consciousness, like these motherfuckers are just gonna have to deal with it. That's where I'm at right now.
Also, like the suits are probably microdosing on a daily basis. Let's be real.
They want to be, yeah. But no, it like deeply resonates because it is this. It's not. All of these things are not easy. You're not saying they're easy, and I want to reiterate that, like, these aren't easy. They sound and simple. They can be simple, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're without challenge.
But like something that I put on my social media last week, like just was working out, and I just had this thought that like no matter what path we take in life, there's going to be hurdles, there's going to be obstacles, like there are going to be difficult aspects to whatever path that we take. So for example, lifting weights is challenging, but being overweight and sick is also challenging in a different way. Living your purpose and your dream and working tirelessly, day in and day out to achieve this thing is really challenging. But also not having a goal or a dream or something to push you through hard days is also challenging. Building a conscious relationship is not always easy. There are challenging aspects, but it's so worth it. Being single and feeling like you have a void in your life and you're not able to express your love, or being with toxic partners is also challenging. So it's like that's what Earth School, we're in the spiritual kindergarten to experience and to learn and to grow. And there's going to be hurdles. There's going to be challenges, no matter which road you take. So if we can think about that and like proactively choose the challenge, it feels like it's our choice and that we're stepping into it with some amount of power rather than it just happening to us, like the difficulty just happening to us and we have no say in it. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I love what you guys are saying. Cause yes, there is always challenge, and that's a huge thing that many people don't talk about when it comes to like manifestation or like changing your life, making decisions, breaking beliefs. There will be challenges. One of the most important questions to ask yourself is, how would my life change if this fear or this challenge was no longer holding me back? How would my life change if I no longer held myself back from that fear and I just stepped into it? What would be different about it? And for you, it might be like just going full force into like passionately talking about all these different things. But yes, there may be repercussions. That is just the cold, hard reality truth. And our ego fears that. Our ego fears the unknown because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if people are going to, Google our names and see like, what have you been talking about over here? Like, and, there may be repercussions. That's just the inevitable truth. But Everything is always divine, and there's always a divine way. And if your heart and soul are calling you towards a certain path, usually we have to face that fear. And even though there may be chaos around that fear when we face it, all of a sudden we may get flack for whatever we start doing. We may see different challenges that we have to overcome. But if you're so passionately in that direction, your heart's calling you there, you're meant to face that fear. Ask yourself, what would your life be like if you didn't have that? And if that seems like something that's exciting for you, and if you're like, I would be excited to like do that, that feels like it would be good for me, dive into it. Yes, there may be repercussions for that, but there's always ways to navigate around those repercussions, because maybe once we enter that world, maybe it's because we were supposed to let something go. And if there's a lot of chaos around it, it's divine from the universe. The universe is saying, I'm getting rid of something for you that was holding you back. You finally overcame that fear. And now the universe is going to take that fear away. And it may look very different. It may look like losing your job. It may look like, whatever, losing a relationship. But that may end up being the birth of your most beautiful time in your life. It may be the birth of your new path that you're now creating.
Yeah.
It's
so
it's
true.
like it's like those people or that flack, the feedback that you might be getting from jumping in the deep end of wherever you've decided to jump in at, might just be the excess weight that you need to shed to be able to get into the rest of what you're aiming to get into. And so, I mean, that totally makes sense. I want to get into a little bit around manifestation. I think it's a word that's thrown out a lot. I think it's been completely overused as it pertains to kind of like the influencer world at large. Oftentimes just assumed to be quite easy. You make a vision board and you stare at it every day, and then your dreams come true. Maybe we can break it down a little bit, and would love to get kind of your perspective. I know you're a master at manifestation, so we can debunk a few things.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the main things to know about manifestation is that we are constantly manifesting no matter what. Your unconscious and your conscious mind are constantly creating your reality. And there isn't one single method that's going to all of a sudden change your life. It is your internal self. And you don't need to do a spell. You don't need to do a ritual. You don't need to make a vision board. Those are tools to help your subconscious mind. They're tools that can help you in the process of manifestation, but you actually don't need any of that. They can be extremely powerful though, and very helpful. So the way that manifestation works is basically the energy that you are emitting is creating your reality. You can look at the energy that you're emitting as your emotion. Your emotion is your way of reading frequency. So if you're feeling negative, your frequency that you are emitting is equal to that. It's going to be negative. And emotion is energy in motion. So whatever emotion that you're feeling, you're putting that energy into motion and sending ripples out into the world. So, for example, if you're feeling negative, and let's say you're interacting with somebody, and let's say that they're also feeling negative, those two frequencies, when they meet each other, they're going to get amplified because they're a similar frequency. It will amplify. If you're feeling really positive and you go to a negative person, those two frequencies, you won't see eye to eye. It'll kind of create like a new waveform that's not quite like seeing eye to eye. And depending on whose amplification is stronger, it will shift that person. So if my amplification is so strong, let's say I'm feeling so positive, I'm talking to someone who's feeling negative, but let's say I'm so like powerful in my high vibe, that amplification of that frequency that I'm emitting will overpower the other frequency, and it may actually uplift that person. You may notice that person's like, wow, you just really uplifted me out of that mood. Wow, thank you. You can also look at this in interactions. So if you really want to help somebody out of something or pull somebody out of a way of thinking or a frequency that they're emitting, you can either meet them at that same frequency, because you'll get two waveforms where all of a sudden that person will feel comfortable, you'll get more leverage, and then you can begin to show them kind of a new concept or idea. Only if they're open to it, of course. You don't want to use this as a manipulation practice.
Yeah.
But so that's like one way that you can shift someone's amplitude, or you could also just be really powerful in your own amplitude. But this also doesn't just affect relationships. It affects everything in your life. The energy that you emit, everything on this earth is frequency. And one of the things that we learn in science is that everything is just different particles that are vibrating at different rates. Everything. So everything is motion. That's one of the Hermetic principles, as well as the principle of vibration. Everything is vibrating. Your emotions are a way of reading vibration. If you are feeling amazing, you are going to amplify anything in your reality that resonates with that. So you are going to then amplify things that are amazing. If you're amplifying the energy of, I'm going to manifest like the love of my life. Let's say that that's what you want to manifest. If you actually exude the emotion of already having met your soulmate or the person that you want to fall in love with, if you're emitting that emotion, you're going to amplify everything in this world that is equal to that. And those two energies are going to begin magnetizing towards each other. So that's how manifestation works. The energy that you're emitting is so powerful and so important. So it's not just about your way of thinking. And I know a lot of people get into manifestation after watching The Secret, which The Secret is such an amazing work of art. It's such an amazing movie. But it talks pretty much solely about your way of thinking, which your way of thinking does affect your emotions. But the things that actually create your reality is your emotions. So you need to have a powerful emotion in order to manifest.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
If anyone is doubting even just the language around energy, I would challenge you to just think back on moments in your life. If you've ever been at a sporting event where the crowd is super into something and there almost becomes another entity that's involved, like the power of these people cheering for something, and that's typically a positive experience. If you've ever witnessed or been a part of a mob, like the quote unquote mob mentality, where, I mean, political riots and things of that nature get quite hostile and people do things that are so out of body because of this sort of accumulation of negative energy and god awful things happen.
Or even just reading headlines, like I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, is like if you're reading and immersing yourself in the negativity of Twitter or social media or comparisonitis on Instagram, like you feel worse, like it brings you down.
Yeah. Like going home and back to your community, and if you've come from a place that's pessimistic or negative, you can come off of a weekend from going home a lot of times and being like, wow, that I feel just like in the dumps. It's so negative. So these are completely real circumstances. I think the Bible verse is like, where two or more are gathered. I think it's something, I don't know the exact verse, but evidence being that two people or more with synchronized, energetic states can be extremely powerful for better or for worse. And even in my lifetime, as I've doubted these types of things, I've found that these environments specifically are so clearly showcasing the power of what these, seemingly intangible energies can actually contain. At what point does it turn toxic, if ever? Like, I have seen maybe denial of certain realities by strictly focusing on only things that are good or fixating on manifestation. And I've witnessed in my life some who are in complete denial of maybe current circumstances, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that is a great question. So one of the ways that I've noticed it kind of gets toxic is when you start to become aware of that your emotions create your reality. Then we tend to get really scared if we're ever feeling negative, and we try to avoid it, we try to deny it. But as we know, if we deny or suppress the negative emotions, they kind of fester and grow and become bigger. One of the things to know is that there's no 100% controlling every single emotion you have. And it's also important to know that both emotions, negative and positive, serve an amazing, beautiful purpose. You don't need to avoid negative emotions. And just because you feel negative for an hour a day doesn't mean you're going to all of a sudden manifest the worst life possible. You know, that's absolutely not true. Your negative emotions play such an important role in the process of manifestation because your emotions tell you what's going on in the ethers. It tells you what's going on subconsciously for you that you might not be aware of, because a lot of our manifestation is subconscious as well. We live 95% of our day subconsciously and only 5% consciously. So there's a lot going on subconsciously. That's why when negative emotions come up, it's so important to look at them, because negative emotions tell you when you are out of alignment with what you desire. So if you have a negative emotion come up, such as frustration, okay, why is that coming up? We can actually look at that and be excited. Like, oh my gosh, there's an emotion coming up that's telling me if I'm like in alignment or out. we start to look at, okay, what did I just do that caused this frustration? And is this frustration attached to a belief? Is it attached to a fear? Is it attached to an outcome that I'm trying to force to happen? Because another thing to be aware of in manifestation is that we're not manifesting to, like, we don't control other people. Other people are also manifesting their own realities, and we're manifesting ours. So if we're trying to manifest, and let's say we're in a relationship where we're like, I'm manifesting that this person is my soulmate, and let's say that they're like, I'm really not feeling this relationship. Yeah. So it's like, you're not going to control someone else. Yeah. Everyone has free will. So in the process of manifestation, there's certain rules. We can't necessarily, manifest for other people in a bigger picture. So we can't force somebody to be our soulmate. We can't force somebody to all of a sudden want a different outcome in their life. Let's say we're trying to manifest for a child and we're like, you are going to want to be a doctor. Yeah. Leave behind your dreams. Like, we can't do that, right? So that's a huge thing to know. There's a lot in the spiritual community that says, oh, you can manifest anyone into your life. No, you technically can manifest somebody into your life, but you're not going to like the outcome of that necessarily if they weren't meant to be there. So you can manifest having more time with someone. You can try to force things going on, but it's not going to necessarily lead to that outcome. So look at what's frustrating in your life right now and start to realize that that's actually a blessing that's trying to notch you over to where you're actually meant to go. We could also use this example in career. So let's say you really, really want to work for a certain company and you're like, that's the company I want to work for, 100% want to be that. And let's say you're a writer and you want to work for that company. So let's say that you apply and you get rejected and you're like, no, I'm manifesting that it's going to happen. I'm manifesting that's going to happen. So you keep applying, you keep applying, you keep applying. And the universe is like, nope, 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 nope. And you're like, manifestation isn't real. It must not be happening. Sometimes manifestation works in kind of a more mysterious way. So yes, you may want to be a writer, and that may be something that, you can actually do. You can do anything, but that company, the universe may actually be protecting you from an experience that you don't want. Because you may be thinking the emotion that you're putting out might be, I'm going to have the most amazing career. That might be the emotion that you're emitting, is like, I'm going to have the most amazing career there. But the universe might be already foreseeing and, feeling that vibration. That vibration might be out of alignment with that. So you keep getting these rejection notices and you're like, I don't understand why. The universe is trying to notch you over to the place that actually matches the emotion that you're emitting. Yeah. So you might notice rejection in certain areas, and that rejection is so divine. So if you notice negativity coming up, if you notice, bad things happening or whatever, unideal outcomes, it's supposed to notch you over. It's an awareness to notch you over to the best outcome. If a relationship falls out of your life, that might be divine from the universe to put you on a new path.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I look at it. Didn't feel divine at the time, but that's sort of how I look at our split now, is like, our life would be wildly different now if we hadn't gone through all of that. And it was really challenging and it was really hurtful and awful at the time. But now, like, looking at our life, when people ask us how we're doing, it's like, we're living the dream.
Yeah.
Literally living my dream life. And that wouldn't be the case in the same exact way had we not gone through the shitstorm of divorce, which felt really negative in the moment. What were you going to say?
Well, I was known, and I feel the same way completely. I was going to propose a couple ways to manifest, and maybe you can correct them or up level them, because I've heard literally in my life, a particular project that I was working on, I was with some spiritual individuals who believed in the power of manifestation, and they were like, all right, we need to envision and manifest a very specific number as to how much money we're going to make in this. And so it was like, let's just say it was $1 million. I want everybody to focus on $1 million, all the zeros, the dollar sign. And when we meditate, we're all going to focus on that. One, does that work? Is that effective? How could it be up leveled? And I think the same could be said, because I've heard this as well. Focus on the weight that you want. We'll lose 50 pounds. So that scale is going to say 120. Like, it's going to look at 120, focus on that scale. How would you up level those types of manifestation recommendations that are kind of fixated upon a very specific outcome?
Okay. So to answer your first question, those do work. 100%. They do work, especially if you have a collective, like focusing on an outcome that really does amplify it. How you could up level the $1 million mark instead of, because that's actually, you're limiting it now to $1 million. Even though $1 million might seem like a huge number, if you define a specific number, you may actually be limiting it, because what if your potential that year could have been 3 million?
Yeah.
Like, who knows, right? 1.5. So you could up level that by changing the wording to be, we're going to create more than 1 million. 1 million is our minimum. We're creating more than that. Like, let's create more. You also want to, anytime that you manifest something, let's say you're writing something down of what you want to manifest, always single out each word and make sure that there's no negative words, because your subconscious mind reads into the negative word. So if you're saying, I want to get out of debt, that's to your subconscious mind, you're automatically thinking of debt. Therefore, you're going to feel the emotion of debt, because, for example, if I tell you, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of a pink elephant automatically. So make sure there's no negative words. Make sure there's nothing that you've written down that you don't want to manifest, because your subconscious mind, we work 95% off of our subconscious. So make sure there's no negative words, because your subconscious is just going to manifest the negative word instead of actually reading like, I don't want that, you know, right? So, back to your thing, you could up level that by not putting the exact number. You could say above 1 million, or you could say like our best year yet. But if you want it to be 1 million or more, I would say above 1 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about the process, the second example of like a specific weight? What would you say around that?
So sometimes specific weights aren't necessarily where we're going to feel our best. So my first recommendation would be just feeling the emotion. Like, how do you want to feel about your weight? Do you want to feel at your absolute best? Maybe write down, I want to feel at my healthiest, at my most optimal. Because sometimes, you know, when we lose 50 pounds, we might not actually feel our best at that weight. Yeah. Maybe we're going to feel our best at a different weight. And we can't really define what that number is until we actually find what that is. So that would be maybe the first way I would improve that. And again, when we limit ourselves to a specific number, sometimes we manifest exactly that number. And maybe that wasn't the greatest potential for us. So be open to the greatest potential being maybe something slightly different. But if you want, you know, if you want to have the best figure of your life, if you want to feel your most optimal and most healthy and strong, you could write something like, I am going to manifest being so happy with my body and feeling so healthy within it. That is a really beautiful manifestation.
Yeah. Like so healthy, so good. My clothes feel so good. I'm having amazing sex and I'm feeling like beautiful in my body, that the number doesn't even matter to me anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Like around money, for instance, if you fixate on money, you know, you could be even pushing yourself into doing ungodly things to get it, right? Like, I'm going to steal to get this money. Or if it's, if it's a specific number, a weight, you know, well, that might also mean you could starve yourself to get to that weight.
Yeah, you might
if
have...
the outcome is the number on the scale. And so I love that, like really kind of going up a stream and wondering like, how am I going to actually, what am I ideally feeling here? Because if it's around money, maybe it's abundance and freedom, and you don't want to be doing napkin math at the grocery store to see if you can buy organic food or not. You want to feel stable and abundant enough to be able to freely pay for the things that bring you life and happiness. And so I like that, going like upstream, kind of beyond some of the, we don't know what we potentially are going to feel like at a specific definition. Yeah. And so I think we have a habit of telling ourselves a story about, as long as I get XYZ fixed, very specific, then I will feel the following, instead of, when I feel the following, these are the things that'll be happening to me.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because when you define the emotion that you want to feel, it makes sure that nothing bad happens to then create that. So like you were saying about money, like, we don't know how we're going to make $1 million. It could manifest in so many different ways. And also, maybe we made $1 million, but maybe our expenses that year were like $950,000. You know, we're not really defining. But if we define the actual feeling behind whatever it is that we're manifesting, it automatically makes sure that those negative things couldn't happen, because the feeling wouldn't be generated then. So focus on the feeling.
And it's like, so much of going through that exercise, you'll probably realize that you actually don't care about the thing you're manifesting as much as you do the feeling. And so like money, for me, it's freedom, and it's the ability to feel free to pursue the things that I want to pursue when I feel the feeling to want to pursue them. And so it's like, I want to buy the property, or I want to take the vacation, or I want to help the following person. Having money is a resource for the freedom of expression in my life. And so maybe it's like, wow, I need to meditate more on what freedom means to me, and how my legacy and my purpose is actually contributing towards a more free life instead of a more rich life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so also glad that you brought that up, because that's also another key to manifesting is the emotions that you're desiring to feel is actually your key to manifesting it. Because I'll give this example just to make this like easier. Before I started my YouTube channel, I always had this thing where I would always feel like I wasn't taken seriously. I don't know why. I like had this notion in my head when I was younger. I always wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted people to think of me as smart. And I used to be like super blonde, like platinum blonde hair. And there was always this stigmatism, I guess, around that. Or at least I had this belief like, nobody's going to take me seriously. Nobody's going to think I have anything important to say. And that was actually the reason why I, really wanted to create a YouTube channel, was because I was like, oh my God, I feel like people would start to like take me seriously if I did that. I feel like people would take me seriously. But I would never start a YouTube channel until I started feeling like I took myself seriously,
yes.
until I embodied that emotion. Once I embodied that emotion, the action to then, create a reality for myself where I felt that, then those actions became clear. So you're not even going to realize the actions that you need to take until you begin to embody the emotion of what it is you're trying to manifest. If you want to manifest the most amazing love that you've ever felt, and you want to manifest your soulmate, embody that emotion. Because once you embody that emotion and you go on dates, you're going to see who's equal to that emotion. You're all of a sudden going to feel like the energy, and you're going to be like, no, that's not the one. And there's always, we hear so many examples of people saying like, I felt like that person was the one, like immediately, that's because that's in alignment with what you're feeling. And you may be choosing people that are out of alignment with that because we haven't embodied the emotion of what we really want. But when you embody it, you can recognize it. And then you can also recognize the action that goes along with that.
Totally.
Yeah, so
like
true.
as we, just using the example of love, as we love ourselves more, that feeling is familiar to us when we go on a date with someone, or when we are in a relationship with someone that can match it, exactly like you're saying. Like, but you have to do that for yourself first before you can even understand or really be able to point to or pinpoint the feeling from another person. Otherwise, it's just like unfamiliar, uncharted territory. You don't know what love actually feels like until you give it to yourself first.
Yeah, something we say all the time as an expression of how much we love each other is we say, you're me. And we just say that to each other, like, oh, you're me. And I think there's this myth in romantic partnership often was this you complete me idea. And the feeling of having somebody complete you, it feels amazing. But it's actually codependency, and it's actually the feeling of knowing deep down that you have major gaps in the relationship you have to self. And when somebody is coming in and actually kind of filling those gaps, it feels like completion. And so if you need to be validated in a particular way, and somebody is validating you, let's just say it's on appearance, it can feel completing. And so this term of you complete me feels amazing, but it's mistaken for the one that you can spend the rest of your life with and have a long-standing partnership with. And of course you can evolve and eventually kind of like complete yourself wholly individually and create a beautiful relationship out of that. But a lot of times those relationships fail because as people change, as people evolve, that gap will be exposed. That other individual will not be able to fill you up any longer. And so finding completeness within yourself and realizing that this individual that you want to partake in a relationship with is also whole themselves. You see yourself in them as a reflection of a whole human being.
Yeah.
And so this concept that, we've practiced is like, you don't complete me. It's not, I can't live without you. It's that I am complete. I just really don't want to. And I see the love that I have for myself in you. Thus, us creating this life together is abundance. And I think that's oftentimes like, I don't know where I was going with that. We were talking about relationships, but it reminded me of this idea, this myth in relationships, which is like somebody else can complete me.
I love that you said that, like, especially because whenever you are in a relationship with somebody because they fill that gap, it always becomes a toxic relationship.
Yes.
Because like you said, as they evolve and change, those gaps get exposed. And you're also so clinged on to that person. So even like when you're trying to go through a breakup, that's when you get those messy breakups where you know, like, I probably shouldn't be with this person. There's a lot of toxic things going on, but then you're so attached that it keeps like, you know, feeding that. But yeah, if you heal yourself, like you were saying, and you're a whole person and you find another whole person, you create such a beautiful relationship. And that's what creates that freedom as well in that relationship. And when you have those two free people who are just being themselves, they really just amplify each other rather than fill the gaps. They just amplify.
It also takes, it's a lot of pressure to feel like I complete you. You are dependent on me in this state, never changing, never messing up, never showing my flaws, because what happens then? Like it's sort of liberating when you release your partner from that expectation that they complete you. And when you're whole in yourself, it's like they can like breathe, you know?
Yeah.
I would love to, taking this back, all these like beautiful concepts that we can see apply in life, let's distill them down into maybe a simple practice that somebody could do on a daily basis. So how does that look for you, or how do you recommend people go about this on a daily basis for themselves in whatever they want to manifest?
So there's multiple different methods to doing this. One of my favorite ways, just because it's such a deep practice, is through the practice of meditation. I love to meditate in the morning and focus on embodying the emotion that I'm trying to create in my life. Embody the emotion that I'm trying to, that matches what I'm trying to manifest. Once you embody that, it starts to break down your belief systems for you. And that frequency is going to create experiences for you that are equal to that. And you're going to start drawing in all those like amazing experiences that match that emotion. So that's a really easy practice. And I know, you know, when you first start meditating, it may be quite difficult. And that's when I would suggest like guided meditations. There's tons of guided meditations on YouTube. I also particularly have one. It's about shifting your reality, and it takes you through a process of embodying the emotion of what you really want in your life.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes, you guys. So if you're looking for it, or description box on YouTube, check the show notes.
Yes. So that meditation is so powerful. And if you don't believe that meditation is powerful, read the comments below that meditation. You'll see like how many people are like, wow. So meditation is an amazing practice, and guided meditations really work, especially if your mind gets distracted easy, or if you're new to meditating. That's a great practice. Affirmations, I used to not think that they were that powerful. I used to think like, oh, affirming to myself, like, I am beautiful, I am great, I am successful. I was like, that's so like empty. But the more that you get into affirmations, the more that you repeat them, it's going to become something that starts to wire into your mind. And it's a great way to sort of shift your way of thinking into something that's more positive. So it's actually an incredibly powerful practice, although it could seem sort of fluffy on the surface. But yeah, that one's also extremely powerful.
Yeah, I can like, there's actual data that supports men who in the mirror, like especially if they're working out, who pound their chest and actually pump their fists above their head, that it increases testosterone. And it's a very primal thing, but it's like actually going through the motions, even if you're not totally sold on it, by doing that can have a physiological impact.
Yes, and your physiology, exactly like how you were saying, like pumping your fist, if you actually like move your body into a new position that reflects what you want to feel, it's going to affect your emotions and your way of thinking, because your way of thinking affects your physiology, but it's also a two-way street where your physiology affects your way of thinking.
Yeah.
So if I'm sitting like down like this and I'm just like, oh, you know, like I'm going to manifest the thoughts of like worry or negative emotions or things that are associated with that posture. But if I change my posture, and let's like use your example too, like when you start pumping your fist and all of that, it actually releases the hormone of testosterone.
Yeah.
You can change so much of like your internal state and your physical body by just changing your posture.
Yeah.
That's a great way to like use embodiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about journaling? Do you ever use journaling practices?
Yeah. So I also I do also do journaling, especially to kind of figure out if I'm feeling like a negative emotion. It's a great way to like break it down and start to reflect on it and see where it's stemming from to work through it that way. I also journal as in like kind of like scripting. If you've ever, like you guys have probably heard of scripting. It's basically when you make sort of like a diary entry as if you've already were living your dream life and you script about it. I love doing that type of journaling. I also do journal prompts where I ask myself like a series of questions that'll help me reflect on my well-being and sort of see the areas that I need to maybe work on in my life. So that's, journaling's great if you have like journaling prompts.
Yeah, I love the practice of journaling. I find that sometimes like my hand starts writing things that I didn't consciously think. Like it starts a flow of words or concepts or thoughts or beliefs, like you were saying, like kind of working through the negative belief, like what am I actually working with here? It sort of gives you a map of what is on the inside, but maybe you haven't thought consciously, like in sentences in your head. So when you give yourself the space to just no judgment, just like let it flow on the paper, not only are you working through some of those, I would say, tangles in your mind, it also now, whatever you're putting on the paper has weight in the world. So I think something that helps me is to write down exactly what I'm manifesting or how I want to feel, because then it's not just up here anymore, which again is obviously super powerful, but now these words have weight in the world somewhere. And I think that it could be my own thought, but that's how I like to think about it, is that it's even more so just amplifying the energy surrounding that emotion or behavior or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why like doing like a vision board or something like that or journaling is so powerful, because it does amplify manifestation. It helps your subconscious begin to recognize something in the physical world as well. Mm-hmm. So another great way. Like I do make a vision board once a year, and everything on that vision board comes true by the end of the year. Sometimes it happens so fast though that I need to make like a new one like a couple months later, because I'm like, wow, that really like came true fast. I've had that happen to me a couple times. But yeah, vision boards are super powerful. I also really like to manifest with water. That's something that I've talked about a little bit. Mm-hmm. And like, you guys, are you familiar with Dr. Emoto? So,
but for our listeners who aren't, maybe you can listen.
So Dr. Emoto did this water experiment where he would put words on different jars of water, and all this water was taken from the exact same source. It was the same molecularly and structure wise. And so he would put words on these waters, and he also had waters that he would speak different words into, and then he would freeze it and then see the sort of structure that ice would make. You know, sometimes it makes snowflakes, sometimes it makes other patterns, but the words that were negative all of a sudden took on this structure that was just didn't have much form or shape. It kind of just looked like
kind of oblong.
Yeah, like oblong, just kind of weird. You know, look at it and you're like, okay, like, all right. But then you look at these other words like love or beauty or grace or thankfulness. Those words had the most beautiful geometric structures, the most beautiful snowflakes. So water takes on the energy or the vibration of whatever you put into it. So I also have this practice that I'll do on a new moon. So like once a month.
Which is like now, isn't it?
Yeah, we just had a new moon like a couple days ago. But we have a new moon once a month. I don't manifest every single month with this method. I kind of do it, I would say like every 6 months is what I do. But you have the opportunity to do it every month. It's more powerful on the new moon, although you can do it at any time if you don't follow the moon cycles. But it is more powerful on the new moon because the new moon gives the energy of a new beginning. And basically you hold water and you speak into it what you desire, but you speak it with present tense. So you say like, I just had the most successful year in my business. I am thriving. I am abundant. I found my soulmate, and he is the most amazing person on the planet. He loves to travel. He's successful as well. We go off on these vacations together. Like whatever you are trying to manifest, you speak it into the water, but you speak it so many times. You repeat it until you feel the emotion come up in you so powerfully and so strongly. So it's important to kind of like maybe write it down first, and then you continue to speak it into the water until you feel that click, you feel that burst, you feel like you're overwhelmed with that emotion, because that's when you know that you are emitting that vibration, and that vibration is going to affect the water. And then I take a sip out of it like every day until the water's done, because it reminds my body to become that new vibration.
So you don't just gulp it down?
I gulp a few sips down, probably the most sips down that first time, maybe like 1 to 4 sips. And then I keep the water, and then I take a sip of it every day until it's gone.
I love that.
That's rad.
We definitely,
I wish
we're
I would
going to
have
do
done
that.
that as an athlete.
I'm signing you up. We're doing it.
I would have told the water boy to be like, hey, put some freaking power in that water. Put some intention in that water. That's really, really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. We need to get, I've seen your like blue bottles that you use. Is that what you use those for? The water manifestation? I thought you had like blue bottles or something.
I have clear ones.
Maybe it's clear.
Yeah,
I've
they're
seen the
clear
blue
ones.
bottles though. Have you seen like the blue glass bottles that?
Yeah.
Anyways, they're supposed to be for the practice of like imprinting the water. I don't know what the blue has to do with it, but yeah, I love that practice.
Yeah.
We gotta get a manifestation jar.
Yeah, different colors of jars. The colors have different frequencies too. So like if you're manifesting money, you could use like a green jar. White is like all or clear, I should say, is like all encompassing, because there's no real energy attached to it. So that one's like all encompassing. If you want like protection, a black one, or like love would be like red or pink.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
On the
That's so
note
cool.
of water and what you're putting into your body and how you take care of your body, what are your thoughts and perspectives around your physical well-being, both from a movement and exercise perspective, as well as diet, and what you eat and drink, in relationship to a spiritual life, or in relationship to your capacity for manifesting the life that you like?
Okay, so this might be a slightly unpopular opinion, actually, but it actually plays such a huge role.
Yeah.
Your health and well-being, your kind of like energy flow through your body is really affected by what you eat, how well your blood is flowing through your body. If you have certain blockages, your energy is not fully going, how it should be. Exercise is so powerful to get energy into motion. And actually, like growing up, my mom always used to tell me, like if I was sitting on the couch and I was like trying to contact a friend to be like, I want to hang out with a friend today, but I was just sitting on the couch and I'm like, nobody's answering the phone right now. This sucks. My mom would always be like, go outside, be active, and do something, and I swear you're going to get that call back from your friends. They're just going to call you back, because it puts energy into motion. And when your energy is in motion, everything that you're trying to manifest actually comes in faster, because you're moving that energy and it amplifies it. So you getting into motion plays a huge role in manifesting. Also detoxing things from your body, because have you ever heard of like, going for those certain massages where there's those therapeutic masseuses who push on the pressure points and you release trauma?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So trauma stored in the body. If you want to release old trauma as well, it can be really beneficial to do exercise, because you ring it through the body. Yoga is a super powerful way of getting to know your soul, your mind, and work it through the body to be able to release old things. So I think it plays a huge role. Your food plays a huge role as well, because as we know, your food is either going to keep you healthy or unhealthy. So I think food is a huge role, and the food that you eat has particular vibration as well. So you could actually eat food to like heal different chakras, and you can know it just by knowing the chakra colors in the food that you're eating. It doesn't always correlate, but most of the time it does. So like purple cabbage, crown chakra, beets, root chakra, because of the red. So you could actually eat to heal different parts of the body. There's also different foods that are known to detox different organs in the body, which also really helps, because again, your chi flow, your energy flow in your body plays a huge role in manifesting. And I'm not saying that you cannot manifest if you're unhealthy. I really want to make that actually really clear. If you're currently going through any health issues or mental struggles or anything like that, it does not hinder your ability to manifest. You can still manifest out of that, because once you create a powerful emotion, it can create the energy and motion where you can begin to take action or get ideas to overcome those obstacles, to overcome those issues. So of course you're going to be more in alignment with a healthier vessel, but it does not mean that you cannot create healthy alignment and manifest all of your wildest dreams, even if you're currently struggling. You still can, and you can still do it in very powerful ways.
Yeah. I think of it, we've talked about this before on different podcasts, but we kind of think of it like an antenna where if it's a little fuzzy, maybe you're a little unhealthy, or maybe you are wanting to shift your health or manifest the epitome, your optimal health, whatever that looks like for you. But it's a little fuzzy right now. Like your antenna is going to be a little fuzzy. It doesn't mean that you can't understand the song when you're tuning into the radio, but when you get your vessel clean and optimal and healthy fully, like mind, body, spirit, then it's almost like that song comes in clear. Like it's maybe tuned up a little bit, and the antenna is a little more shiny and open and can reach further maybe.
That's a perfect example of explaining exactly that. Yeah.
Well, okay, so you brought up one unpopular opinion. I want to know. It's been too positive. It's been too light and fluffy. Not that it's not amazing content, but I want to just give you the space if there are any unpopular opinions that you maintain that you would like to share with us and our listeners. You can go anywhere you want. Floor is yours.
Okay. I think I don't think often enough about my unpopular opinions that it's hard for me to kind of like reach for them. One of them that I guess I'll go into is we have free will constantly. And if you are given like a fortune in like a tarot reading, or if you have certain astrology, let's use astrology for example, because that one is like, it's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Your natal chart will have certain positions, which will kind of show your personality and what you might be, really prone to attracting into your life. And you can also look at predictive astrology with your natal chart and see like, oh, at this point, you're going to go through this huge struggle. And this point, you're going to go through this. You are actually in control of this. Your astrology, your natal chart, is a blueprint of your autopilot unconscious mind. You can use your conscious mind to go, let's say you look at your astrology and you're like, oh my God, the next 3 months are about to be like the craziest time. I have like Pluto all of a sudden like opposing my Venus or something. Like this is going to be crazy. So you can actually go, if you consciously go through that, it's like sitting in the driver's seat of your car, which is normally on autopilot. And maybe you have this huge obstacle right in front of you that you're about to crash into. But with the awareness of that, you can look at that. You could grab the steering wheel and be like, okay, I see this obstacle. I'm going to learn this, be aware of this obstacle. I'm going to steer around it, because you can't really necessarily fully like avoid certain things that your soul came here to learn. You're still going to learn it, but you can choose how you learn it. You can choose to ram right into it, unconsciously go through it, let it control your life, let it completely crumble your life, or you can choose to consciously go through certain things. So astrology can be a tool. You are not fated for particular destinies. You can actually go through a Pluto opposed Venus time. You could go through that with ease, with the awareness of it, because you might be like, oh, Pluto is about to affect my relationship areas. What relationships in my life are not quite in alignment? What is Pluto going to try to teach me right here? What relationships in my life have maybe been areas that I need to focus on? With that awareness, you can look at that and be like, all right, let's start working on my relationships. What do I need to learn in this time? And then go through that, and you're going to notice like, that was easy. Like that was totally fine. That did not harm my life, like in any way, shape or form. It's just something that you can have the awareness on, and, you can really actually create any reality. You're not dictated by these sort of fates. Astrology is a beautiful way of looking at what your soul came here to learn, but you are absolutely in the driver's seat of that. Like I've had certain people that I've given readings for example, back when I used to give personal readings, I'd have people that would have really negative placements in their love life, for example. And they would be like, love has been awful for me, and I would love to have like the most beautiful relationship, but every astrologer I go to tells me that I'm never going to find that because my soul only came here to learn harsh lessons. And I'm like, no, oh my God, like that you can create anything that you want. You are not bound by this. This thing was what your soul came here to learn. But if you learn those things, and you desire to manifest your soulmate, your astrology is not going to stop you from doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It will never stop you from doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that.
I love
Yeah.
that the phrase that you use, the term, the autopilot blueprint of your unconscious. That's a perfect way to put it, because like Chase has talked about this before, where you were kind of resistant to the concept because you don't want to be put in a box or have someone else tell you like, this is how you are, this is who you are, and this is what you're confined to.
Yeah, I have a core belief that we can all change, and it's just happened in my life too many times through hard work, effort, and a little bit of luck every now and then. But it's a core belief, and I'm an introvert, brutally shy young boy who now is very social, can be extroverted in certain lanes, loves people, loves connection. And even though all of my archetypical wheels and charts would suggest otherwise, I thrive in those environments now. And so I've always been, as much as I love astrology, love it, I've always been like, yeah, but that's just one data point.
yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way to look at it. It can be used as a tool. And I think it should only ever be used as a tool rather than something to tell you, oh, you're fated for this, give up on your dreams because that's not in your astrology. No, like you
Yeah.
can really create anything. That's just your subconscious blueprint. And the reason why we have that, what I believe, is that our soul came here to learn certain things. I feel like we did choose to come here, and we chose what we want to learn and go through. And in order to make sure that happens, of course, we're going to need certain subconscious programs. Your astrology is the perfect blueprint of your subconscious programs to make sure that you as a soul go through everything that you intended to come here for. So you never need to worry about, am I out of alignment? Am I on the right path? Am I off the right path? No, like you are always in alignment.
Yeah.
Your subconscious is always keeping you on that right path, but your free will is that conscious mind. You can choose to learn these lessons and implement them, shift them, and then create any reality that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. If you're
Snaps for that.
most of the time, if you're being told you're out of alignment, and then the next solution is here's a course, and then the next solution is like you're just in a sales funnel. You're typically in a sales funnel. The people who are doing it the right way are typically not driving some sort of product at the end of the day. But that's kind of the world we live in. Is you're pushed into thinking something's not right, and that you're going to have to reach outside of yourself for the solution, or work with somebody external to yourself to find the solution. I'm not saying there aren't amazing products and amazing mentors and companions in this life to navigate your way through a lot of these challenges. But I am an absolute believer in the the capacity to push through these things. We actually maintain ourselves.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we're not going to get anything out of a course if we don't actually shift ourselves. Like you
Yeah.
could go on a course for like breaking habits. You could go to like a Tony Robbins course to break a habit and then just wait for him to do it for you. But you're actually not going to break that habit until you just take whatever he's teaching you and apply it to your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Absolutely.
really have to be, and you always are the creator of your reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely mentors can help you with that.
Yeah.
Mentors hugely can help you with that. I've had like mentors in my life who've excelled my learning process so much. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely some courses out there that are just like, let's funnel you into.
Yeah, and I've had courses that have absolutely changed
Yeah.
my life, and mentors that have done the same. But then there's also charlatans and
Yeah.
and that's kind of my question that I had for you today was in this world that we live in, there are teachers, mentors, coaches everywhere. And you are someone who has significant influence. And how do you view your role as someone who has a platform, who is influencing people? And we've been able to see it in a tremendously positive way. But what is the responsibility like for you to wear that hat of teacher, mentor to the people that follow you?
I always kind of like, I have imposter syndrome, and I think you were mentioning like that was something that, I mean, I feel like everyone goes through a moment
Yeah.
of like
Oh, yeah.
having imposter syndrome. I always have that. And so I kind of define myself as a forever student who just shares like what I learn along the way. I'm a forever student, but I share what I learn along the way. And so I see myself that way. So I feel like, everyone's responsible for their own life. And I love like having a platform where I can share what I learn, because I love learning, and I also love to share it because I know how much it's impacted my life. Therefore, I'm so excited to like have it possibly impact somebody else's in the same way. And I love having that platform to do that. I find it such an honor. But one thing that I think is important to make clear is that anyone that you follow, any mentor that you have, is also just a student. Like, there is the teacher archetype where we're sharing our information, and everyone is the teacher-student archetype really at all times. We're always learning, and we're always teaching what we know, whether that just be to a friend of ours or a family member or just anyone. So
Our kids.
Yeah, our kids, exactly. So yeah, I just see myself in that light, and I don't see myself as somebody who has all the answers. Like, I don't think anybody will ever have all the answers to everything. But yeah, I enjoy sharing what I learn along the way.
I feel the guide archetype strongly in you, which I have it as well. It's kind of different than the teacher archetype, because the teacher is like at the front of the classroom pointing to the board, or in some type of classroom scenario, kind of showing. But the guide is different. You're still teaching, but it's through your own experience. It's paving the way a little bit, going through the thing, learning the thing, or taking the course, or learning astrology or tarot, and then kind of looking back at who might be behind you and say like, hey guys, I made this path. If you want to follow me and like do what I did, like, great, this is what worked for me. And I have that really strongly in me as well, to the point where it feels uncomfortable to not share the thing that helped me. And so it feels like I'm cutting myself off. And Chase is laughing here because there's moments where we'll be in conversation with someone at a workshop or on a podcast, or just a stranger in the grocery store. Well, they'll start talking, and I'm like biting my tongue because I want to share this thing so badly. And 9 times out of 10, I do share. And Chase has to be patient with me in that moment, because he's like, all right, her guide archetype is going to step up here. She can't not share.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But it fills my soul. It's so fulfilling to me. And I have it in my highest potential house. I have it is that the 10th house? Yeah, the guide archetype in my 10th house. So I know it's really strong for me. And I just pick up on that for you as well.
Well, it's also helped me and Mark as well. Because like we've like changed our entire regime with like our dental care because of you. But in the most amazing way. Like, I've been loving the outcomes that I'm getting. So anytime that you've like had that moment to share, like, especially because I've experienced those moments of sharing, I've learned so much from that. And it's like dramatically changed my life for the better as well.
I kind of forgot that you guys have been the beneficiary of that guide archetype, at dinner, like
deep coffee
sharing.
Anima
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The amount of time that we've spent with Mark and Leanna talking about coffee enemas and poop and how healthy is your poop is pretty wild. But somehow you guys are still friends with us. So
yep, here we are.
Yeah. It is the mummy tummy that binds us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the mummy tummy of Egypt.
Yeah. Well, I think a beautiful, magical way to close the episode, before we ask you our last question, there are so many external factors and global pressures or crises, or whatever you want to call it, that kind of trigger a lot of anxiety, depression, uncertainty for people, especially around being able to take action in creating the life that they want, because there are external factors that might be out of our control, whether it be government or community or whatever it is. If you could give maybe a nugget of wisdom for someone who might be feeling that a little bit, a nugget of wisdom in the way of creating more, we use the word magic a lot at the beginning of the episode, in an intentional way, like extracting the beauty and the magic out of every day when there's so much externally that's out of our control. What tip or nugget of wisdom could you give people?
Quite a few. One of them is realizing that everything is always in divine alignment. Everything on this planet, even the negative things, which it can be really actually hard pill to swallow, but truly there's divine alignment within everything. As we know, like the bacteria in our body, there is bad bacteria and good bacteria. But if one of those gets out of balance, even if there's an overgrowth of good bacteria, that's also a problem as well. So our whole universe is always in a balance. If you want to create more magic in your life, it's realizing that the things that are external from you don't actually have power over you. You are the creator of your own destiny, your own reality. And if there's a will, there's a way. Even if you don't conceive or perceive of a way right now to create that magic, if you just withhold that vision and you say, I'm dedicated to this and I'm going to do this, if there is a will, there's a way. And that statement is so true, and it's rung so true in my life in states where I've been and where I've thought like, wow, this is like the crashing, burning ending. And it's so interesting because the crashing, burning ending that you have in certain moments of your life, if you look at that, that was actually the doorway and the initiation of some of the greatest, highest points of your life. If you look at any crashing and burning, it's always led to something amazing. So if you're going through a harder time, or if you're feeling like external forces are kind of pretty heavy, realize that there is divine light at the end of that tunnel, and that if there's a will, there is a way to create whatever you desire. Another thing that I want to share just on that concept, just to kind of explain the idea behind that everything is in divine alignment. We came here as a consciousness to experience the world, experience reality. And a huge question that seems to ring through a lot of minds when you get into this concept is the question of, why is there bad things that happen then? Why is there these crazy war and all the awful things that can happen in this world? When we as human consciousnesses create theater or create games or movies, we always pick things that create challenges or big other things because our consciousness came here to experience. We need the spectrum of experience in order to feel anything, right? So we need the negative to feel the positive. So when I was a kid, I used to not understand this concept. And I used to look at, movies that were really sad or paintings that are really sad. And I used to look at that and not understand, like, why would somebody spend all the time to make that? Why? It doesn't make sense. As an adult, though, I look at those things and I'm like, that is the most beautiful thing ever. Like, if you see a painting of, like, I don't know, someone being sad over a war that's happened, the reason why it's beautiful is because you realize the emotion that's behind that. The emotion is beautiful. The fact that we can feel something so intensely and start to realize, like, this is making me realize what love is. This is making me realize the people that I love and how much I actually care for them. Yeah. So it can evoke different things within us. I think our consciousness came here to experience all of life. And even though it may be very hard and very sad at times, I think it develops us in a beautiful way. It develops us consciously in a beautiful way. We wouldn't just want a movie that's just full of sun and roses, because it wouldn't create the contrast. So even if you do go through something that's hard, realize that energy and matter can never be created or destroyed. So even if we've lost a loved one, energy and matter can never be created or destroyed. That person is still there. They will reincarnate at some point. I'm a personal believer in reincarnation. And they're still there. They haven't left. So when it comes to these darker points of our life, realize that everything is just an experience, and realize the beauty behind that. If there's a hard time that you're looking at or seeing, realize it's because you have such a capacity to love. Realize because you have such a capacity to want greater. And go create that.
I love that. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautifully put. And it, piggybacking on that last part of when we experience negative things, most of the time, the actual negative experience is just a negative feeling, right? We're probably not in dire life or death situations every day. I think a lot of the negative that we experience is actually just a negative feeling, not someone's coming at me with a knife or something like that. And so when we can kind of put it in that context of like, is the thing that I'm worried about or trying to run from or don't want to experience, that's just a vibration in my body. It's not actually going to harm me. And I think that that reframe can really help. Even I'm telling myself this because, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety yesterday, but anxiety is still just a feeling running through the body. I'm not actually in harm.
Yeah. And the emotion of something can also be harder to experience than the actual thing. Like if you've ever had a needle before, let's use that example. The emotion leading up to a needle, you're like, oh my God, oh my God. But then it actually goes in, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Like you realize it's actually not that bad. And if you've ever gone through a breakup before, we know that the emotion surrounding the idea of the breakup was much harder than the physicality of it. So our emotions are actually, where we experience the most suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. I know we could keep going with you for like another 4 hours. But I am just so grateful to you for sharing your magic and your wisdom and just how you see the world. Honestly, like one of the questions that Paul Chek has posed in many different workshops and I've thought about in my own life is if everyone in the world was doing what I'm doing, would the world be a better place? And when I reflect on what you're doing, yes, the world would absolutely be a much more beautiful, magical, amazing place if everyone was able to incorporate and embody the tools and the insights and the wisdom that you shared with us today. And I'm just super, super grateful for what you're doing and that we get to call you a friend.
Oh, thank you. I am like so grateful to call you both friends because I've learned so much from both of you and like I've had the most fun experiences and the most fun conversations. Just so thankful for both of you. The wisdom that both of you like brought to my life as well has been immensely appreciated.
My Leo heart is exploding.
Many more adventures to come.
Okay, very last question. You want to take over?
Yes. Last question we ask every guest on the Medicin podcast is, and this whole show is really about like, how are we redefining the term medicine? What are we doing in life to look under the stones and peek through the cracks and find the real medicines that bring us life and love and relationship and abundance? So our question for you is, what for you currently in your life feels like medicine?
Sound has been my medicine lately. I've been collecting different like sound healing instruments because frequency, everything's just frequency at the end of the day, like we've been talking about. And sound can reset your body and it can also help you reduce like certain cortisol, stress hormones in your body, or it can also balance different organs in your body depending on the resonance that you're working with and the frequency that you're working with. So I've been working with a lot of sound lately as my medicine. Music is also very healing. Like we can listen to a song and experience like beautiful emotion, which I'd actually highly recommend listening to songs that evoke the emotion that you desire to feel because it'll help you kind of like put you in that space. But of course, all songs have their purpose and their time and place. But yeah, sound has been incredibly healing for me lately, and I've been loving like diving deeper into it in a more kind of like esoteric way.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll connect you with our friend Ian Morris. We just did a sound.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna love that
interview.
episode. Yeah, you'll love him. We'll talk to you about it once we get off here. Otherwise, we'll be here for another hour. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to follow you? Of course, they can check the show notes, but where's the best place for people to get more of the Gem Goddess?
YouTube and Instagram. My YouTube is the Gem Goddess. My Instagram is the Goddess Gem. And one thing I want to say is definitely like beware of scam profiles. If you follow me, you may get a message from there's been so many scammers lately in the spiritual community that make fake profiles and try to sell you readings and stuff. I don't ever DM you to sell readings. So if you get that, like that's not me. I would never. But that's where you can find me.
Cool.
Yeah.
When in doubt, just check the show notes and we'll have the link for you right there. Thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you both so much.
All right, you guys, thanks for hanging with us. Go spread some light. We'll talk to you next time. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.